They are timing when they feed their mice, and they're finding that that's as powerful as when the mice are exposed to light and dark for the mice to have a stronger body rhythm. And it's making the mice live longer. If I'm too busy to eat, something is wrong.
If you had a magic wand, Sheri, what would you like to change in mental health?
So it's one of his healthy habits to say, you know what, if I'm too busy to make my bed and eat my breakfast, I'm too on fire. It's like the body has no internal clock.
What if one of the signals that helps regulate our body clock is not only light or sleep, but also the timing of our meals? Today, we're exploring a fascinating new research question: could eating within a consistent daily window or following a Mediterranean-style food plan support sleep, mood, or quality of life for people living with bipolar? To be clear, it's not about replacing our medication or therapy, or even losing weight. It's about suggesting that people are responsible for their symptom. And these are approach have been studied in addition to usual bipolar care, not as standalone treatment. So welcome to Bipolar Talk, the podcast where we turn our bipolarity into an opportunity. I'm Clément, the founder of Upstage, and also bipolar type 2. Today I'm joined by Professor Sheri Johnson, distinguished professor of psychology at UC Berkeley and director of the Calm program. Our research explored bipolarity, mania, emotion, impulsivity, and everyday rhythms that may influence mental health. And Sheri, can you start introducing yourself, actually?
Sure. So I'm Sheri Johnson. I run the Clément program, as you said. And our focus is really on how could we use basic science to make lives better for people with bipolar. We do a lot of different kinds of studies, but we've been very interested in kind of two themes coming out of the basic science literature. One is the idea that people living with bipolar and their family members often have very high, what we would call reward systems, a kind of willingness to go after a goal in a big way. Sometimes that leads to absolutely beautiful accomplishments, but we also think it can be part of the spiral upwards when it's not contained, and we're really interested in that. The other thing we're really interested in is the growing body of evidence that circadian rhythms or day-night rhythms, your internal body clocks, are somehow very tied in to bipolar. There's genetic research that says that sometimes those rhythms are going to be blunted or fragile. We often see people develop symptoms when there's a threat to kind of keeping your body clock regular. And we know that when your body clock gets out of rhythm, it can often impair how people are sleeping. And sleep is a big harbinger of how people are going to do over the coming weeks. And so both of those areas really intrigue me because I think the evidence is there across biology and the social environment we're living in that those things matter. But most importantly, because I think we can do something about both of those to help the people who are living with those. And I'm all about, well, how could we use this? How could we make lives better?
Yeah, I feel it's like, as bipolar, it's always about what can we do to improve our routine. I would say even our healthy habits, because I feel the more habit that we have, the easier it is to stay stable. So what is your thought, and why are you focusing on non-drugs area?
Yeah. I'm not opposed to drugs. I am not a psychiatrist and I'm not a pharmacologist. And, when I have people I really love who are struggling with the condition, the first thing I want is get them a good medication evaluation. And that's a complex process. It takes a lot of working with somebody to find the right dose, the right profile. But even for a lot of people, there's still breakthrough symptoms. You can be on a medication and sadly still have some symptoms unfold. And so I'm really interested in what do we do about that? I'm also just personally fascinated because working in this field for decades, I've known many people with bipolar who just do exceptionally well. They're really kind of incredible human beings. Like, I am in this field because I love a lot of the people that I've met, right? I'm kind of amazed and awestruck by how some people do. And so I'm always asking those people, okay, who are you and what are you doing, right? And what you hear again and again is people have amazing self-management kind of skills, amazing habits. They have a toolkit of things they're plugging into their daily life. And so I'm fascinated by those questions of, okay, given that the medications are not yet perfect, and I'm an optimist, I think they're going to get better. But in the meanwhile, what do we give people? And people shouldn't have to be out there kind of inventing that for themselves. Like, I think there's a genius about many people's inventions they've got for their habits to keep themselves well and to monitor and to understand what am I looking for. But we should be giving that away like candy. We should be harnessing what we're learning from people who have beautiful self-management and saying, here it is.
Yeah, that's what we do a lot actually in the psychoeducation program that we have.
Yes. Yeah.
It's
No,
like,
it's so fun to meet you because I think we're so philosophically congruent about how we think about where we want this field to go and what we want to have at the fingertips for people who are just learning that they have this condition and kind of how to build the best of all possible lives with this.
yeah, and if you're listening, is like, I've had struggle in the past. I think it's important to say it, and I didn't know what to do. I was lost, and but then you do one thing at the time, and what helped me the most, I think, was sleeping habits. I'm curious to know in the comment actually what helps you the most or what helped your loved one. And food is something that I started to look a little bit later, mainly to stop eating sugar. Like, I still eat sugar for sure, but I will actually select the sugar that I eat. It has to be really, really good. Otherwise, like, for example, I never drink soda or this type of thing. But I'm curious to know more about the diet and the impact for bipolar. So, because I heard about a Mediterranean diet through Michael Berg, and I know you're working on this too. So, what have what have you found so far?
Yeah. So we're still early on. We're halfway through testing how the Mediterranean diet or timed eating work. And we are not going to kind of unzip the data file and look at it until, we have the whole set of people. And we really want to know not just does it make a difference, but who does it make a difference for? And how easy or hard are these plans to follow? But I can tell you a fair amount about why I'm so excited about it. Um, so Mediterranean diet, let's start there. Let's start with even the definition. It is basically following the traditional diet for countries surrounding the Mediterranean Sea. Not in terms of flavor profile. You don't have to like oregano, but or any one spice kit. You can put your own spice kit on top of anything and call it Mediterranean diet. But the idea is the traditional diet for that region of the world involved a lot of vegetables and fruits, and then proteins from legumes like and beans, and then lean proteins like fish and poultry, and very healthy sources for the fat like olive oil and nuts and seeds. So those are the kind of basics to kind of build your plate around. Um, and the best versions of this say, no, let's not ban foods. People cannot be getting into a kind of guilt cycle. So yes, you can eat meat. You can eat sweets if they're worthy. You can eat processed foods if it's like, okay, look, I need to get something on my way in a hurry. You can have a glass of wine, but those things are considered extras. Don't torment yourself, but don't put them at the middle of your diet. Now, why do I think it's really exciting? More than 600,000 people have been tested in studies to look at, like, when people are following this, do they have less depression anyway? across that many people, just asking people, do you follow this? Depression rates are about 10% lower. Now, that's with cruddy science in some ways, because who knows what people mean when they say, sure, I follow this, right? Or tell you what they think they ate in the last year. Who knows? So the better studies are what we would call a randomized controlled trial. So there we're randomly assigning people to Mediterranean diet or a kind of controlled diet condition. And we're testing as we really watch what people are eating. And there you see drop-offs in depression of almost half. That's a big chunk, right? It's not a cure, but boy, if I had something where I could be good to my body and my brain and drop the odds that much, that's pretty sweet. And we know from similarly huge scale studies, it's good for your brain, it's good for your heart, it's good for inflammation. And those things are often challenges that go along with bipolar. You know, for many different reasons, there tend to be a lot of metabolic concerns for people with bipolar. Some of it is probably woven into the vulnerability. Some of it might be meds, lifestyle, going through periods where it's harder to take care of yourself. There's a lot of reasons that there's metabolic challenges, but this gives hope that you could turn some of those things around. And they're really powerful ways to kind of influence kind of body health. And we know that that body health, that metabolic health, is profoundly important for how your brain does. It really predicts outcomes for people living with bipolar. And so to me, I look at that and I think, how is it we're not testing that? And that's where we jumped in. I could not find a study on the Mediterranean diet and bipolar. And I was like, this should be the poster child of what we're looking at. So that was the inspiration for Mediterranean diet. And I'm really fascinated to see how it works.
Yeah, and food is so important. So first of all, if you want to know more about it and have like the toolkit to do so, Sheri is actually doing a trial at the moment that you can participate. So we'll put the link into the description. And if you have any question about it, I'd be curious to actually know about what you do about food, because personally, one of the worst decisions that I made in the past when I was in depression is I wasn't cooking. I was basically eating pasta and tomato sauce and bit of cheese every day. And I'm pretty sure not having fruit, not having vegetables really didn't help getting out of depression. It's not the only thing, but it seems logical because I'm not giving my body the option to have access to nutriment, to like all those beautiful things. So I feel like, yeah, nutrition and everything actually around like health is related. And that's why bipolar is probably a subject that we both love, because it's about the treatment, but it's about everything else in our life. And of course, I would love to eat some croissants sometimes. So it's important to be able to enjoy those little things.
Yeah, exactly. You cannot torture yourself. So let's just step back for a minute. I mean, we live in a world where we're probably bombarded every day with something about how we should all be having healthy lifestyles, and everybody knows it. Like, this is not something that would be news to our grandmothers. And yet it's so hard to do for everybody, right? We live in a busy period. We live in cultures that surround us with juicy, kind of addictive foods that are designed to be addictive and not great for your body. And then on top of it, bipolar makes it just that much harder. So what do you do if you're depressed? And what do you do if you're manic? And that's part of what we thought we could do with this program is before we launched, we got together people with lived experience, people who had been doing diet trials or nutrition trials, and said, what are the biggest barriers and how do we give people tip sheets and videos around those themes? So for example, Robert Villanueva is one of the lived experience experts on my team. He was like, look, if I'm depressed, at least I can put a bowl of fruit next to my bed. I don't feel like getting out of bed, it's better to reach over and have a piece of fruit than to not eat. Having pre-made like frozen foods, zap it in the microwave. Food delivery from a grocery store that sells kind of pre-made healthy foods. Like there are ways that even if you have no energy, you can get some nutrients that are better for you. There's also, your pasta thing is not horrible, but there's small tweaks you can do to say, you know what, I'm going to throw some frozen chopped vegetables on top of that pasta, and I'm going to sub out the white grain pasta with whole grain pasta. It's just as easy to cook. You have that stuff in your freezer. You have that stuff in your cupboard. So how do we make these choices a little easier? Similarly with mania, Robert will talk about, he just almost uses food as his signal, right? If I'm too busy to eat, something is wrong here. So it's one of his healthy habits to say, you know what? If I'm too busy to make my bed and eat my breakfast, I'm too on fire. So that's the Mediterranean diet side. And the other thing in our food plan that we're bringing in is coaches. And some of our coaches have lived experience. But every week somebody can kind of dial in and say, I hate recipes. How am I supposed to eat the Mediterranean diet? Or I can't figure out this. I hate fish. Or what am I supposed to do when I'm out of the house for 12 hours? What's a portable way to do this? So we're there for people to just kind of like, what are the barriers and how do we brainstorm with you?
That's the thing, is like getting the help to do that, because as you say, in depression, all the little things seem so hard. And always what we believe is, of course, it's when you're good that it's easier to make those change and keep those change long
Yeah.
term.
Yeah.
And we tend to wait until it goes wrong to
Yeah.
start thinking, oh, but I need to do this. And no, it's like, if you're listening, you're probably like, let's say if you're in a good moment, it's when you can start those things like, okay, how can I eat more vegetables? How can I eat more fruit? How can I limit the sugar? And maybe how can I stop soda? And it's not easy, but those tricks that you show, Sheri, are quite good. And I think it's important to say that most of the industrialized food are probably toxic. And I think, I know that some people will say otherwise, but I always explain the difference between the different type of transformation. So you have an apple. An apple, there's no transformation. And then you have like mashed apples. So it's already much easier to eat. And then you have like juice, where you can probably drink 3 apple and you couldn't do it if you had to eat the apple. And juice are actually way worse than apple. And then you have like the little, like, I would say cake, industrialized cake. And those are the different level of industrialization. And the more industrialized it is, the worse it is for your body. But maybe, Sheri, you can explain it a little bit more for the mood side, why it impacts, because I'm just sharing like the common knowledge.
I completely agree with you. And I don't know if I have anything that's better than what you just did, but the stats bear it out. When people are eating highly processed food diets, the risk of depression is, in observational studies, is about 30% higher. And those stats, you can be a little bit of a cynic because they're probably doing a lot of other health behaviors. They might be doing it because they're feeling down, but there's a big correlation there. And there's a reason to think that it would be that way, because you're not going to get the same level of nutrients, but also those diets tend to promote inflammation. And a lot of the science right now is trying to understand how inflammation is tied in with risk for mood. So that's where a lot of people are thinking that maybe the Mediterranean diet is making a difference mechanistically, is that inflammation and metabolic concerns are so important for mood. And those the kind of heavily processed food diets are well known to be related to higher levels of inflammation and metabolic concerns like diabetes and insulin problems and heart kinds of things. So yeah, so there's every reason to think that this could matter. And I'm like, how can we not have a scientific study that's checking it out? So that's where we are with Mediterranean diet. And a lot of our question is about what does it take for people to be able to use this? When are they most able to use it? How much do they need to be able to use it? And then, of course, how much of an effect we'll see. And that's why we're trying to recruit a lot of people. We're trying to study 450 people so that we can really look at how individual differences play out.
Yeah, and it's what I love about this study is, of course, it's about helping us more than 300 people, which is great. And for us, it's about helping ourselves, but also helping the new generation.
Yeah.
And it's something that will improve everybody else's life
I,
because well, let's be positive. We can say
yeah, yeah,
it.
yeah. That's the goal. That's the goal, right? Imagine for a minute that we find out that one of these two diets can really help promote stability for people with bipolar. Then we basically have a free tool we can hand out worldwide with some tips to say, here's what we recommend. And the goal from the beginning has been set it up so that if it works, you can give it away. So all of our materials are online. Nothing we're doing is face to face and heavily dependent on seeing a therapist and a dietitian. Now, that may turn out to be, troubling for some people. Some people may need that level of care, but we're really interested in, could you develop a game plan where you give away tip sheets and everybody has it at their fingertips?
And what is going in top of my mind is what we've seen works a lot is like a community and talking group and
Yeah.
like the psychoeducation. So, for example, including this type of tips inside the community level of motivation could also be interesting. Um,
We totally think that's true. In fact, one of the things we were talking about yesterday is, what if you offered this for like families to do together? What if you did it in an interpersonal context? And it's tricky to kind of figure out the math on that, but I do think there's incredible power. And I totally believe in what you're doing with trying to create support networks. Like, and imagine those support networks could collectively adopt kind of goals for healthy lifestyles. I mean, for me, for decades now, I know I will exercise if I've made a commitment to do it with a friend. Otherwise, I'm like, okay, get out there for 10 minutes, maybe. But if there's a friend waiting, I'm going to do it.
yeah, and these are the things that we need to build.
Yeah.
Like, I'm curious to know in the comment actually, like, how do you build those healthy habits? I mean, what are your tricks? Because I think everybody has their own things. And personally, I like classes also because I know I
Structures.
have to go. I know I'll see some people that I love. And so it's easy to do. There's a lot of strategy because, yeah, it's hard. It's always easy to go and watch a show or even go on social media, but how do you get the motivation to do those things? And diet is a big it's a big one of them. So
I
we
have
talk
so
about
much. Yeah, I have so much I want to say. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to
go
interrupt you.
for
I
it,
got all
Sheri.
excited. um, so first thing, before we even give people what their food plan is, we talk to them about SMART goals, or we give them a sheet to read about SMART goals. And many people will have heard about this in other areas, but the idea is to choose one small feasible thing at a time. If all you did this week is when you went to the grocery store, you subbed out your kind of plain pasta for a whole wheat pasta, or got yourself a bundle of different whole wheat pastas to taste, you would be making a gain, right? If you decided, you know what, I'm going to try one new bean soup this week and put portions of it in the freezer, you would be making a gain. How do you find something that kind of appeals for you and is feasible? What we often find with our folks with bipolar is that they're very ambitious. and they're very perfectionistic. And so they want to be on the Mediterranean diet. They want to be on it so wholeheartedly, and they're terrified because last night their grandma offered them a cupcake. And I'm like, no, 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 no. You cannot do this and be that harsh to yourself because it's not sustainable and it's kind of crushing of the soul. What you want to do is take it as each small thing you do, you are nurturing yourself, you are moving in the right direction, you are better off than you were before, and make one change, kind of get used to riding along with that change, and then tackle the next change. And so if you make one diet change each week, imagine 8 weeks later where you are.
Quick break. Can you let us a review on Apple Podcasts or the platform of your choice? It really helps us break the stigma around bipolarity. Let's get back to the episode.
Yeah, it's like I like the self-improvement methodology. Like almost every day, I just ask myself, like, what could I have improved? And it's really those little habit that makes you a better person, and then makes you more happy, because of course we're doing it to do the study, we're doing it to maybe avoid depression, but also it's about the people around us will probably eat better because you are becoming an example. So maybe your wife or your friend or your kids or whatever are probably going to be like, oh, actually it looks like healthier, it looks like happier. Maybe I do the same. Maybe I stop drinking soda, and maybe I start to try, I don't know, eat more vegetables. And I think this is really like food is one of the things, like I always say, as human, we do three things. We eat, we make love, and we sleep. The rest is, of course, we can do it, but those are the things we're made to do.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think the other thing I would comment on is that we live in times that are so body conscious, and we don't want our people to get caught up in thinking about, am I losing weight? Am I, looking attractive? Like, those are long-term goals, and I'm not going to criticize people for whatever goals they want, but we're very explicit. Like, don't sign up with us thinking I'm going to lose weight, I'm going to be on a diet. We want to find people who can just take this on as, can I do something good for my body, and watch how that goes and learn some extra skills, but not getting caught up in those self-critical dynamics around beauty and ideals and perfectionism. So,
But at the end of the day, if you start eating like more vegetables and fruits, it's like we know the data, and we know that it could take years, but little by little, you're usually going to get better.
Yeah. And as you feel better and you have less inflammation, it's easier to kind of add activity as well. So, but hey, I want to talk to you about timed eating too. We haven't even touched.
I had the question, but you wanted to go more. So yeah, go for it, Sheri.
Okay. So we know that people with bipolar often have kind of weak body clocks. What do I mean by that? They often feel pretty sluggish by day. They're often awake by night. They travel, and it's really hard to kind of get back their rhythm. Something wakes them up in the night. It's hard to get back to their rhythm. There are a lot of small signs of how body clocks are a little weaker. And we know from some of the genetic evidence that we know that you inherit clock genes that help regulate your body clock. And those clock gene profiles sometimes look different for people with bipolar and for their family members. So we know they're kind of coming in to the world with a tendency sometimes to have a weaker clock. Now, what is your body clock doing? Your body clock is helping you stay in tune with the planet, with the light-dark cycle. So for decades now, we've known that your body clock gets tuned by a little structure in your brain. I love this phrase, the suprachiasmatic nucleus. The suprachiasmatic nucleus gets a direct jolt from the retina of your eye when light of a certain frequency at dawn and dusk hits your retina, sends a signal straight back to the suprachiasmatic nucleus saying, hey, it's dawn, hey, it's dusk. And then that, we call it the SCN, suprachiasmatic nucleus, can work as a master clock for the rest of your body and kind of keep you in tune to the light-dark cycle. That's how we get light therapy. It turns out that almost every mood pharmacological agent also has some influence on those clocks. So we knew that. And I was doing some research with my friend and colleague Lance Krigsfeld, who's a chronobiologist. And so he knew how passionate I was about circadian rhythms and bipolar. And he came to me and he said, are you following this stuff on timed eating coming out of Salk Institute? And I said, no, I don't know anything about it. He's like, it's amazing. They are timing when they feed their mice. And they're finding that that's as powerful as when the mice are exposed to light and dark for the mice to have a stronger body rhythm. And it's making the mice live longer. We've got to study this in bipolar, right? Now, I was kind of like, Lance, that doesn't make any sense to me. We all know it's the suprachiasmatic nucleus. How is food influencing your suprachiasmatic nucleus? And he's like, no. You actually have a clock. You have clock genes turning on and off in every single cell of your body. I had no idea, right? That's just fascinating to me. I was like, oh my gosh, okay. So now it starts to make sense that the timing of your food is also an incredible signal to cells in your body that now it's time for energy, now it's time for less energy, okay? So you're feeding in now, you hope you get your light cue in your brain and your body gets cues from the food of time of day. Now, that's me geeking out, but basically what I'm going to say to you is that if you can follow some very simple rules for timed eating, we think that's going to help regulate body clock. We've seen that in animal science. There's some early science in humans that it improves sleep, that it improves kind of the rhythm of the clock genes throughout the body. So it makes perfect sense that you would then want to offer that for bipolar. Did that make sense? Do you want to ask me any questions about that? I know I'm geeking out.
Yeah. So to rephrase a little bit.
Yeah.
So what you're saying is, so one thing which is really important that I actually advise about is, as soon as you wake up, try to get sunlight directly to your eyes. So you can at least go to the window or outside really as soon as possible. So your eyes will understand that it's time to wake up. Yeah. And it's time to basically reduce cortisol and everything.
Yeah. So totally.
So that's the first thing.
And in the evening, go see if you can go outside in the evening. Dusk. Beautiful time of day to be outside.
Yeah, or even I don't know, does it work when you go and it's already dark or?
The most critical light frequency is coming in at dawn and dusk.
Okay.
And that's part of why good light boxes, there's a lot of sham light boxes that are not very good, but good light boxes are producing a light that's at the same frequency that you would get outside at dawn and dusk. So that's a nice substitute if you're a person who can't make it outside at dawn or dusk, because you can give yourself another signal straight into your suprachiasmatic nucleus.
Okay, good to know. If you have a question about those boxes, let us know. We'll try to find the right one. And so what you were saying, Sheri, is there's also something that is about food. And if we eat at certain time of the day, also our body will understand what time of is it on the day and will regulate basically our circadian rhythm. For my understanding, is just your body clock. It helps you understand when to sleep, when not to sleep. And as bipolar, and at least personally, sometimes it feels like my body don't really understand that it's night.
Yeah.
Much more when I was in hypomanic phase,
Yeah.
where I could wake up at like 2 a.m. and be totally fine and start my day. My
Yeah.
body really didn't understand that it was not the right time and it was time to sleep. So,
Perfectly said. Yeah, perfectly said. It's like the body has no internal clock.
and
Yeah.
so can you explain a bit more, Sheri, like what's going on and how food can impact our body clock?
Yeah. So there's a couple ways this might work. First, when you eat late at night, digestion goes on for 5 or 6 hours, particularly if you've eaten a heavier meal or a higher calorie meal. Um, that is going to interfere with your body's beautiful processes of drifting off to sleep. It's going to keep you in a more energetic mode. Okay. So, first rule is don't eat late at night. Ideally, stop eating 2, even ideally 3 hours before you're going to sleep. Sorry. Uh, okay. So you want to stop eating 2 or 3 hours before you go to sleep. Um, that's really very powerful right away. But the other thing is, if you're eating at the same time every day, your body begins to expect, oh, it's time. Okay. So your body is getting another beautiful rhythmic cue of what time is it. And there are different variations of this, but what we recommend is keep your eating to about 10 hours a day. So you knock off your eating. If you're a person who goes to sleep at 10, you want to stop your eating around 7. And you want to wait in the morning to have your breakfast as well. Now, why wait in the morning? Because your body already has a whole lot of hormones doing beautiful work in the morning to wake you up. So in the morning, you have a big cortisol surge. People think cortisol is stress. No, cortisol is energy. And to get you out of bed, your body does this very natural rise in cortisol, helps you have that energy, helps you kind of get out of bed. If you eat, you're going to begin to suppress that lovely rise of cortisol. So you want to let that happen. Get yourself out of bed, get yourself moving, wake up, wake up a little bit, and then you begin your kind of food. Now, initially, people are going to wake up and they're going to be starving. They're going to be like, oh my God, I want my food. But it's amazing. With 2 or 3 days of following this, your body begins to adjust very, very quickly. And know, like, oh, wait, I don't eat my breakfast till 9 or 10 in the morning. And you quit being hungry, especially if you have enough protein in your last meal. So we're recommending basically like wait a couple hours after you wake up, stop eating a couple hours before you go to sleep, and be very, very consistent about the timing. It's that simple, except it's not, right? What do you do if your partner comes home from work late and you like eating with them? Like, again, Robert says, well, that's my situation. I don't want to eat it late at night, but my wife comes home late. I want to be with her. So they flipped it around. She's eating and he is joining her. He's not joining her because there's good food on the table. He's joining her because he loves her. And he's sitting and having a glass of water. And it's a very sweet interpersonal ritual. That doesn't mean he's eating late at night. We also work really hard with people. We have them log for 2 weeks before they start planning this to think about what are their rhythms, what are their social events that involve food, what are their sports events, how are we going to kind of come up with a schedule that's going to be best for them. Also, don't worry about being perfect. Like if you miss it 1 night a week, you're still 6 nights out of the week giving your body this incredible set of cues. There's a lot to be said for being able to take a portable, healthy food with you when you leave for breakfast in the morning. So you go to work, you take your coffee break, and you have a yogurt and a piece of fruit. Very portable and allows you to kind of shift your schedule a little later. So a lot of it is about, the idea of it's super, super simple. Eat 10 hours a day, same time every day, but the devil is in the details. And so we do a lot of work on how are you going to make that happen? And to us, what's interesting is we think, okay, this should really strengthen circadian rhythms. It's giving the body another really powerful cue because your hormone release is really guided by what's happening with calories and energy and food intake. So that's going to be huge. But the other thing is because now you've shrunk the eating window down, that is great for giving your body a break from kind of having to have high insulin. And that is really good for inflammation and metabolic conditions. So we think it's going to have some of the very same benefits that the Mediterranean diet would have for inflammation, for metabolic conditions, but that it's also going to be really, really good for circadian systems. So that's why we're really excited about this. Couple things I want to say. One is, again, absolutely no study of this in bipolar disorder. How could that not be, right? We know that it's hitting some of the major, major issues that are happening for people with bipolar. So we reached out, we did an online survey because we were really curious. Hey, if you have bipolar, would you tell us, have you ever tried this? And what was it like for you? Within a matter of days, we got over 200 people who responded. And we asked them a set of did it help with this? We asked about 10, 12 different kind of topics. Did it help in this area? 99% of people said, I saw some benefit from this. Different benefits for different people, but we were like, wow, that's kind of incredible. And those are all people who tried it without, a doctor or a toolkit or coaches or help with what am I doing? I have sports team till 9:00 at night. My partner doesn't get home till 10, So we figure with tips, it's going to be easier for people to follow this. And we're really excited to see, can it help? What would it look like? How hard is it for people to follow? The other thing I think it might be powerful is because mania can involve such intensity of schedules. People are doing this and this and this. And it's another anchor of kind of, okay, am I pausing to kind of unplug for just a second, take care of my body, take care of myself, not be in the middle of that kind of super goal engaged state. And to the extent that that ritual is really nicely established before people move into hypomania, maybe it brings them back, anchors them, allows them to kind of take a deep breath a couple times a day. That's the hope.
Yeah, and it's not easy. I was thinking about how could I do it when you were talking, and I feel the hardest part for me would probably be in the morning because you start if you don't eat at home, usually you start having meeting when you go to work, and there's certain type of food which is way harder to eat outside of your place. So if there's some people like me, or maybe you can give advice, or maybe you can ask in the comment. So how could we do it?
Yeah, so I think we're lucky in the US because I've begun to understand that in our culture, it doesn't seem to be rude to eat in front of other people, which is interesting. Other cultures, people are sort of mortified that we would show up in the middle of a meeting and eat. But many workplaces are okay with you take 10 minutes, walk outside, have a snack in between your meetings. It takes some juggling. But I think a large part of this is that when we think about food on the go, it's often the hyper-processed food, right? So thinking about easy but beautiful foods on the go. Yogurt travels really well. You can get plain yogurt. You could take your own fruit. Many people make sort of in advance little egg sandwich kind of things, or egg which kind of from home, good pure food things. So I think there are portable foods that can go and still work in the workplace as long as you feel like during that time you can squeeze out 5 or 10 minutes to take care of yourself. And it sounds like you and I have similar schedules where the day starts and we're go, go, go. But I sometimes think, oh my gosh, that is maybe a target for change. Don't I deserve 10 minutes at some point in the middle of the morning to kind of unplug, go take care of my body? And isn't it something wrong with the way my work is being structured if I feel like from the minute I go in, I'm not allowed to breathe?
I I fully agree on like the concept, but you know what it is. Sometimes meeting early in the morning or late at night. But
Yeah.
I really like the concept of because that's one of the things that could be tension with my wife and I is like when I want to eat early because I'm like really want it, like at 7, 8 for me is like we call it bear mode. Like you just want to eat. And when she finished late, it's really hard for me to wait. And it's usually like a bit of tension because either I eat without her or either I eat food but not really a meal before her. So it's like quite bad. And I really like the glass of water to basically tell her like, hey, I'll be with you for dinner, but I'm not gonna eat there because I have to eat earlier.
Yeah.
I really like the tactic. It's like if you have other like this, I think it's really interesting.
Yeah, the interpersonal is really huge with both of these. Like, I like a Mediterranean vegetable, plant forward diet more than my partner. So I've gotten used to kind of having a bean soup while I cook something that's more like a meaty, traditional diet for him. Um, and then I think also, sorry, um, even the idea of like, look, you're working late. Portable dinner is also a really powerful thing. So, making a vat of soup on Sunday and portioning it out, if you have a microwave at work that you can kind of dump something into the microwave, that's really helpful. Sandwiches are probably the age old, kind of like portable food. And I think for me at first, I was like, oh, this is sounding like first grade punitive food all over again. But you can make a really beautiful sandwich. Like I've taken to making my own bread. Not saying everybody needs to kind of do that, but like a jar of roasted peppers, like totally ups the game of making that sandwich a little bit more interesting. There's so many lovely sort of spreads out there, so having fun with the idea that a sandwich is no longer just a PBJ, but that it can be a beautiful food, and then it's a portable, beautiful food that allows you a lot of freedom not to feel like I have to get home by 6 to eat my food. Um, and then the other thing is, let's say you do end up in a situation like there's family reunion night every Friday and dinner never makes it onto the table till 8:30. Don't sweat it. Like, give yourself a pass once a week. But also, if you are in a situation where it would be awkward not to eat, just eat a little lighter because your body will finish digesting earlier. On the bear mode thing, you will feel like a bear the first mornings, particularly because often, if you're used to eating late at night, those are often the unhealthiest snacks. That's the ice cream period, right? Like 10 o'clock at night, people are like, I'll have a bowl of ice cream. So when you peel it back, you often lose a lot of calories. So it becomes really important to make sure that your last meal of the day is large enough to carry you through, and particularly that it has protein. And then you kind of have to you have to kind of wait it out. The first 2 or 3 days, your body's going to wake up. There's going to be this ritualistic, like it's 7 and I want my breakfast, darn it. But if you can tide it get through that first couple days, you'd be amazed how quickly your body can adjust to a shift in the schedule because your appetite is actually designed to be predictive. If you tell it, here's how it works, your appetite's going to listen eventually, but the first couple days are hard. We say don't shift by more than an hour at a time because otherwise you will get more of those cravings. Your body's going to easily adjust to an hour's shift. 4-hour shift, that's a lot to ask.
Yeah, and same thing, like if you're looking to participate, we'll put the link into the description.
Thank
And
you.
and it's really about like doing it for you, but you're also doing it for us. Like I think like there's something about clinical trial that we're kind of scared about, but it's why we really like to help us figure out which trial to go. Because some of them, let's be honest, could be a little bit risky and it's not like a bad thing, but some others are way less. And I feel those two, it's like they've been studied before, not on bipolar, but on many other fields. And at least that I know, I never heard someone who told me like, oh, I eat a Mediterranean diet and I had a big problem because of that. So
I hope so, but there's another quality to this, which is, studies are hard. There's a lot of questions. There's a lot of personal questions. We're asking people a lot. So we go in kind of fully knowing, like, look, we're asking for a lot because we're trying to understand everything about how this works for people. And the way I cope with that and the way I've coped with it in all of my studies is everybody on my team knows. I always say when I'm bringing them into the team, there's two things I want them to know. One is that humans matter more than science. Like for the people in our trial, we're grateful for them. And if something's ever not working, we want them to halt, pause, help us tune it. And we really will listen. Like, so humans over science is kind of part of our team's philosophy. And then to kind of give that some teeth. When new people join my team, new staff members, new volunteers, I say to them, listen, there's one simple way you can make me angry. Everything else I will forgive. But if you ever get yourself so bound up in trying to do the science or do something that you hurt one of the people in our trial, like pushing them too hard in an interview, they're hating answering something and you're keeping them in there, that is the one way you're going to make me really angry. Everything else I will forgive. You can forget to fill in a field. You can forget to file this, but anything that looks like it's going to hurt our people, that will make me unhappy, because I think there is a weird thing where you can get very bound up in trying to get your data, trying to get your numbers. But ultimately, this is about humans who are helping you do something.
Yeah, and it's how you get more trust, and it's always the same because then people will trust you and all those things. I wanted to end with this question that is like we always ask. If you had a magic wand, Sheri, what would you like to change in mental health?
I have to limit it to one thing.
That's the question.
Stigma. We're all just humans. We're all just little organisms doing our best, right? And every single human on this earth is flawed. I am as deeply flawed as anybody else. And yet somehow we get ourselves into thinking that because somebody's having a mental health concern, that's shame inducing. And then so much spirals from there. The loneliness, the kind of worries about getting treatment, the worries about telling people how you're doing, and getting the support you need and taking good care of yourself and believing in yourself. So I would want that to change. I want our understanding of these conditions to be so much better. I mean, ultimately, that's why I'm in the science world, is I want us to have better answers. I want us to understand so much at the biological level, at the treatment level. And I want very much what you're doing, which is to bring people together.
Thanks a lot for your time, Sheri. It was a pleasure.
It's so good talking with you. And thank you again for everything you're doing for our world.
To learn more about Bipolarity, go to our website, opestage.com, HOPESTAGE.com. See you soon.